from eerie mountain valleys to mist-shrouded lighthouses. North Carolina hides a darkness behind its southern charm. Tonight, we'll travel through haunted hotels, ghostly highways, and cursed forests, places where the past still walks and the night never forgets. These are the top 15 haunted places in North Carolina. If you dare to look closer, 1 Devil's Tramping Ground, Chatham County. They say there's a place in the woods of Chatham County where nothing grows, not a single blade of grass, not a weed, not even the stubborn roots of pine. It's a perfect circle, burned into the earth as if by invisible fire. Locals call it the Devil's Tramping Ground. Some say it's where the devil himself walks in circles each night, pacing and plotting his next act of evil. Others think it's cursed land, scorched by something too ancient to name. At first glance, it seems harmless, just a clearing hidden behind the trees. Eerily quiet. Too quiet. But those who have camped there tell another story. They wake to the sound of footsteps, slow, deliberate, circling their tents. Their belongings are scattered by morning, dragged outside the ring, as if something unseen refused to let them rest within. Dogs refuse to cross the boundary, their fur bristling, their growls low and primal. Scientists have tested the soil and found nothing unusual. Yet plants die the instant their roots touch that cursed ground. People laugh it off, call it folklore. But every generation, someone brave or foolish decides to test it again. They bring cameras, lights, recorders. They last until midnight. Then the batteries drain, the air turns heavy, and whispers rise from the tree line, ancient, angry, human, yet not. No one stays until dawn twice. So if you ever find yourself driving down Devil's Tramping Ground Road, and you see that empty circle glowing faintly under the moonlight, don't stop. Don't step inside. Unless, of course, you're curious enough to find out what still walks there when the world sleeps. 2. Cape Hatteras Lighthouse, Buxton, Outer Banks, rising against the restless waves of the Atlantic. The Cape Hatteras Lighthouse stands like a black and white sentinel guarding the graveyard of the Atlantic. Thousands of ships have met their end, here broken hulls, lost souls, forgotten names swallowed by the sea. They say those souls never left. On stormy nights, when lightning tears open the sky, strange lights flicker up the spiral staircase, and a shadow climbs where no living man walks. The keepers once called it the Gray Man. Some believe he's a sailor. Others a keeper who died at his post, warning ships until his final breath. Visitors have felt cold hands brush their shoulders as they ascend. The scent of salt and oil lamps thicken the air. Guards who patrol after midnight hear a door slam high above, yet find every level empty except for the faint imprint of wet boots on the stone floor. Locals still whisper that before great storms, a misty figure appears near the lantern room, gazing toward the horizon as if watching for a ship that will never come home. And if you linger too long beneath that beam of ghostly light, you might hear the deep groan of timbers breaking, or the cries of sailors carried on the wind voices that the ocean never gave back. So when you visit Cape Hatteras, remember this lighthouse doesn't just guide the living, it also stands watch over the dead. The Carolina Inn, Chapel Hill, under the soft glow of the chandeliers. The Carolina Inn hums with polite laughter, clinking glasses, and the faint rustle of history. But when the guests retire and silence drapes over the hallways, that's when room 256 begins to breathe again. It was once the quarters of Dr. William Jackox, a charming man with a mischievous streak, who never truly checked out. Staff say the air grows cold there at midnight. The curtains draw themselves back as if by invisible hands, and the faint scent of cigar smoke lingers, though smoking has been banned for decades. Guests report their keys vanishing, radios switching on by themselves, doors locking without reason. One woman woke to find her suitcase unzipped, her clothes neatly folded on the bed, something she swore she hadn't done. Others hear light footsteps pacing behind them in the corridor, followed by a soft chuckle, gentlemanly and amused. The security cameras never catch anyone. Only flickering light and sudden static when that corner of the hallway comes into view. Skeptics laugh. But the Carolina Inn keeps its secrets well. They say Dr. Jackox adored the place so much he refused to leave, that he still attends the grand banquets unseen, watching from the balcony, humming along to long-forgotten jazz. And if you ever stay in room 256, don't be alarmed if the lights dim for just a moment and the curtain sways without wind. He's only making sure you're enjoying your stay. For Attmore-Oliver House, New Bern, at the corner of New Street and Metcalf, stands a grand white house. Elegant and silent, too silent for a place so full of stories. The Attmore-Oliver House, built in the late 1700s, has witnessed centuries of life, death, and everything in between. Tour guides call it a museum, but locals whisper it's something more, a crossroads between the living and the lost. Those who've worked there after dusk speak of footsteps creaking along the upper floor when no one is upstairs. Portraits seem to watch as you pass. In one of the bedrooms, a rocking chair sways gently by itself, the motion too steady to be caused by a draft. Visitors have seen a woman in a long gray dress peering from the window, her face pale and expressionless, before vanishing into the shadows. Paranormal teams have recorded whispers in empty rooms, soft, sorrowful murmurs repeating the same name. Elizabeth. Some say she was a former resident waiting for a husband who never returned from the sea. Others claim the house itself remembers her grief when night falls on New Bern and the fog rolls in from the river. The Attmore-Oliver House seems to awaken. The air grows heavy, the lights flicker, and if you listen closely from the garden gate, you might hear the faint rhythm of rocking wood from the upper floor, like someone waiting still. Five, Harvey Mansion Historic Inn and Restaurant, New Bern. By day, the Harvey Mansion is all warmth and southern charm, a candlelit restaurant filled with laughter and the aroma of wine and spice. But when the last guest leaves and the doors are locked, the air changes. The walls, built in 1797, seem to remember. Beneath the soft music of the dining room lies something older, the hush of unfinished stories and footsteps that don't belong to the living. Servers have whispered of glasses sliding across tables on their own, chairs shifting slightly as if unseen guests were taking their seats. In the cellar, where the stone is cool and damp, lights flicker without cause, and whispers echo in the dark low. Urgent voices speaking words no one can quite make out. One cook swore he saw a woman in a long Victorian dress glide through the kitchen, her face half lit by the oven's glow before she vanished into the wall. Historians say the mansion once housed sailors, soldiers, and smugglers. Others say it hid darker business in its basement. Whatever the truth, the building holds its silence well. Yet every so often, a patron dining by the window feels a sudden chill and glimpses a reflection that doesn't match the room behind them. If you visit Harvey Mansion after sunset, you might raise your glass and feel a gentle tap on your shoulder, an unseen host reminding you not every dinner here is shared with the living. Sector Omni Grove Park Inn, Asheville, high in the misty Blue Ridge Mountains. The Omni Grove Park Inn glows like a castle of stone and firelight. Its grand halls echo with laughter, music, and the crackle of fireplaces older than the guests themselves. But beneath that warmth lingers a chill, a story whispered by generations of staff and visitors alike. They call her the Pink Lady. She is said to have fallen from the 5th floor in the early 1920s, wearing a soft pink gown that shimmered like dawn. No one knows if she slipped or jumped, only that her spirit never left. Guests staying near room 545 speak of a rosy glow drifting down the hallway, the faint scent of lilacs in the air. Maids find impressions on freshly made beds, small handprints on fogged mirrors, and lights flickering to life when no one's near the switch. Some describe her presence as kind a guardian of children and lonely travelers. Others say she grows restless when ignored, tugging at sheets or brushing fingertips along one's shoulder in the quiet hours before dawn. Photographs taken in the inn's corridors sometimes reveal a blur of pink mist hovering near the stairwell where she fell. The staff have long accepted her as part of the hotel's charm, a resident spirit who checks in every night but never leaves. So, if you ever spend the night at Grove Park Inn and wake to a warm blush of light filling your room, don't be afraid. She's just making sure you're not alone. Seven, Brookstown Inn, Winston-Salem. At first glance, the Brookstown Inn feels like a picture of Southern grace, brick walls draped in ivy, candles flickering through lace-curtained windows, a remnant of Winston-Salem's textile past. But when the corridors fall silent and the last echo of footsteps fades, the building seems to breathe again, slowly, deeply, as though something old still stirs within its walls. The inn was once a cotton mill in the 1800s, and legend says tragedy struck when a young woman named Sally met her end after a jealous quarrel with a co-worker. Her spirit, they say, never left. Guests in rooms 205 and 207 report hearing soft sobs at night, followed by the whisper of fabric brushing across the floor. Others have woken to find the scent of lavender, the perfume Sally was said to wear, lingering in the air. Housekeepers tell stories of lights turning on by themselves and bed sheets smoothed moments after being rumpled. One visitor claimed she felt someone sit on the edge of her bed, only to find no one there. Security cameras capture flickers of movement in empty hallways, like shadows bending against the light. Yet there is no malice here, only melancholy. The Brookstown Inn's ghost isn't here to frighten, but to remember. And on quiet nights, when the rain taps gently against the old brick, some say you can still hear the faint rhythm of a loom, weaving through time, keeping Sally's memory alive in the hum of the old mill. To Old Salem Tavern and Museums, Winston-Salem. In the heart of Winston-Salem lies Old Salem, a place frozen in time. By day, it's a living museum, cobblestone streets, wooden shutters, the smell of bread baking in colonial ovens. But when dusk settles and the tourists drift away, the quiet becomes heavy, and the past begins to move again. Within the Old Salem Tavern, where travelers once ate and slept in the 18th century, the ghost of a man, known only as the Little Red Man, is said to still wander. He was once a shoemaker, cheerful and kind. Until the day the tavern's cellar collapsed, taking his life in an instant. Since then, guests and staff have seen a flicker of crimson darting through hallways, a small figure in red breeches, eyes glinting like embers in the dark. At night, doors creak open on their own, mugs slide across tables, and the smell of leather polish fills the air, though no one has worked the bench in centuries. One janitor swore he heard footsteps descending into the sealed basement, followed by a faint humming tune that faded when he called out. Others have felt a gentle tug on their coat, as if a curious spirit were trying to make himself known. Some say the little red man isn't trapped, just stubborn, still keeping watch over the tavern he once loved, unwilling to let time erase him. So if you ever pass through Old Salem after sunset and glimpse a red shimmer slipping through the doorway, don't blink. He's already watching you, smiling from another century. Nine, Battleship, North Carolina, Wilmington, anchored in the still waters of the Cape Fear River. The Battleship, North Carolina, stands silent, its steel hull gleaming under the moon, its decks echoing with ghosts of a different kind. Once a proud warship of World War II, she carried more than 2,000 men into battle. Some never came home, and some, they say, never left. Visitors touring the lower decks have felt sudden chills, as if a draft passed through the sealed corridors. Guides hear footsteps clanging on metal stairways when no one else is aboard. In the sick bay, shadows linger where fallen sailors once lay. The faint sound of boots marching sometimes rises from the gun deck, steady, disciplined, endless. One security guard reported seeing a young sailor in uniform standing by the turret, his face calm but distant, before fading into the mist. Another swore he heard a single knock echo from inside a sealed compartment, a part of the ship that hasn't been opened in decades. Equipment malfunctions often occur near the port side where an enemy torpedo once struck, claiming 5 men in an instant. Those who have spent the night aboard describe dreams of alarms blaring, of the ship lurching under fire, of shouting voices that vanish when they wake. Perhaps the spirits here aren't vengeful, just loyal, still guarding their ship long after the war has ended. And when the fog drifts over the river at midnight, the Battleship, North Carolina, seems to awaken once more, its crew returning to their posts in the silence of eternity. Bucher 10, Latta Place, formerly Latta Plantation, Huntersville, hidden among rolling fields and oak trees. Latta Place looks peaceful, a postcard of early Carolina life. But beneath the charm of its white columns and weathered fences lies a weight of history that refuses to rest. Built around 1800, the plantation saw the rise and fall of families, the toil of enslaved laborers, and tragedies whispered rather than written. Some say their voices still linger in the air, carried on the Carolina wind. Visitors on evening tours often describe the same unease, the sound of footsteps behind them when no one is near, or the faint creak of a rocking chair moving on its own in the parlor. In one upstairs room, cold spots appear even in summer heat, and shadows stretch where no light should cast them. A guide once swore she heard humming soft, mournful, like a lullaby from the slave quarters at the edge of the property. When she looked inside, the sound stopped, but the air smelled faintly of wood smoke and lavender. Cameras flicker, lights dim. Animals grow restless as night falls over the old house. Some claim to see a woman in a long dress watching from the second-story balcony, her eyes filled with something between sorrow and warning. Others hear the rustle of skirts in the corridor, followed by the slam of a door that hasn't worked in years. Latta Place isn't just haunted by ghosts, it's haunted by memory. Every board and brick hums with stories too heavy to fade. And when twilight paints the fields gold, it's easy to believe that the past, here, never really went away. The 11, Valle Crucis, Watauga County. In the shadowed valleys of the Blue Ridge Mountains lies a place whose name means Vale of the Cross. Valle Crucis looks peaceful, rolling hills, quiet chapels, the soft hum of crickets in the night. But locals know better. They say when the mist thickens along Highway 194, a pair of crimson eyes sometimes appear at the edge of the road, glowing from the dark like coals from another world. The legend speaks of the demon dog of Valle Crucis. Black as midnight and the size of a small bear, it prowls the back roads near the old churchyard, its breath steaming in the cold mountain air. Travelers who have seen it say it moves without sound, its paws leaving no prints. Its growl low and bone deep felt more than heard. One man claimed he fled when it gave chase, only to look back and see it vanish in a flash of red light near the church's stone cross. Skeptics call it mountain superstition. But cars stall for no reason there, their engines dying within sight of the church. Phone signals cut out, and more than one visitor has found claw marks etched into the mud where no animal could have reached. Locals don't linger after dark. They lock their doors, whisper a prayer, and avoid the road until sunrise. Because in Valle Crucis, the night doesn't belong to people. It belongs to whatever watches from the trees, waiting for the sound of your footsteps to stop. The Duke Mansion, Charlotte, graceful and grand. The Duke Mansion sits beneath towering oaks in Charlotte's historic district, its white columns gleaming like bone under the moonlight. By day, its elegant sunlight spilling across marble floors, laughter drifting through garden corridors. But when the guests retire and the house sinks into silence, something else awakens a quiet presence that refuses to be forgotten. They say it's John Avery, a former resident who never moved on. Staff describe lights flickering on in empty rooms, the faint scent of tobacco curling through the air, and doors unlocking themselves just as dawn breaks. Guests have felt someone sit at the edge of their bed, or heard slow, measured footsteps pacing the hall outside, though no shadow passes under the door. In the grand hallway, a mirror once shattered without cause during a thunderstorm, just as a whisper echoed from nowhere. I built this house to last. The Duke Mansion has seen fire, renovation, and countless new beginnings. Yet it carries the weight of the past in every creaking floorboard. The spirit within isn't vengeful, only bound to what was his, unwilling to let time erase his name. And if you ever wander its halls after midnight and catch your reflection smiling back at you when you didn't smile first, remember the Duke Mansion always keeps one guest who never checks out. 13. Lydia's Bridge, Jamestown, Greensboro area. On the edge of Jamestown, where the old road bends beneath tangled vines, stands a crumbling overpass known as Lydia's Bridge. To most, it's nothing more than concrete and decay graffiti covered and half swallowed by time. But to locals, it's the heart of North Carolina's most haunting tale, the ghost of the hitchhiker named Lydia. They say on rainy nights, a young woman in a white dress appears at the side of the road, shivering, her eyes wide with fear. Drivers who stop and offer her a ride describe her as polite, soft-spoken until they near the bridge. Then she whispers, "Please take me home," before vanishing from the back seat without a sound. When the driver looks around, there's only the faint scent of wet roses and a damp spot where she once sat. The story traces back to the 1920s, when Lydia supposedly died in a car crash returning from a dance, just yards from the bridge. Some claim to see her still, walking that lonely road, waiting for a ride that will never finish its journey. Police have investigated the sightings for decades, finding nothing but fog and silence. Yet those who have seen her swear it was real, the fear in her eyes, the shimmer of rain on her dress, the echo of her voice fading into the storm. So if you ever drive through Jamestown on a wet, moonless night and see a figure in white by the roadside, don't slow down. Lydia has had nearly a century to practice her smile. 14. Dana Auditorium, Guilford College, Greensboro. At the edge of Guilford College's quiet campus stands Dana Auditorium, a stately brick building filled with echoes of applause, music, and something else. Something that doesn't belong to the living. Students say the air inside always feels heavier than it should, as though the walls remember too much. Beneath the stage, in the catacombs of storage rooms and tunnels, the temperature drops suddenly, and the silence presses close. The story goes that this land once served as a field hospital during the Revolutionary War. Soldiers bled and died here, their cries seeping into the soil long before the auditorium rose above it. Today, their unrest seems to linger. Late-night rehearsals are interrupted by footsteps crossing the stage when no one else is there. Instruments go missing, only to reappear perfectly tuned. A faint groan echoes from the rafters, followed by the slow creak of unseen doors. Janitors speak of seeing a figure in tattered uniform standing at the back of the hall during cleaning shifts. His gaze fixed on the stage, unmoving, his outline flickering like heat on glass. Once, during a concert, the lights dimmed without cause, and a shadow drifted across the audience, halting at the first row before dissolving into thin air. Some say the ghosts here aren't angry, only lost, still drawn to the sound of life above the ground that claimed them. But when the last note fades and the hall falls silent again, the presence beneath Dana Auditorium stirs once more, keeping watch, waiting for the curtain to rise. Number 15. Bodie Island Lighthouse, Nag's Head, Outer Banks. Standing tall against the roaring Atlantic, the Bodie Island Lighthouse has watched over the shifting sands of the Outer Banks for more than a century. Its beam sweeps across the waves, every 15 seconds, a rhythm so steady it feels alive. But those who have worked here after dark say the light isn't the only thing that moves when the sun goes down. Keepers once claimed that strange figures appeared in the lantern room, reflections of men who weren't there. Tools would vanish. Doors creaked open, and heavy footsteps echoed up the spiral stairs long after the last visitor had left. Fishermen out at sea have reported seeing the lamp flare brighter than it should, as if someone or something were signaling from within. Yet when they docked to thank the keeper, they learned the tower had been empty all night. Some locals believe it's the ghost of a former keeper who refused to abandon his post, guiding lost sailors through storms even after death. Others whisper it's the souls of shipwrecked men, drawn to the one light that never betrayed them on foggy nights, when the wind howls like voices calling from the deep. The lighthouse seems to hum a low, mournful sound carried across the dunes. And if you stand too close to the railing, you might feel a hand rest lightly on your shoulder, steadying you or warning you not to look down. Some whispers fade with the wind, but not here.
Join us.
In North Carolina, every shadow tells a story. Every doorway hides a secret, and some spirits simply refuse to rest. Which of these haunted places would you visit? Or will you let the dark keep them waiting?